You know they say hindsight is 20/20? Looking back now, I can see all the signs. But at the time, love had me blind, or maybe just unwilling to see. We met in college, both chasing dreams and sharing late-night talks about our future. She was ambitious, charming, and had this spark that drew me in. We got married young, full of hope and plans for the life we'd build together. The early years were good. We supported each other's careers, traveled when we could, and even started talking about starting a family. But as time went on, things began to shift. Subtle at first, a dismissive comment here, a cold shoulder there. I brushed it off, thinking it was just the stress of life. Then came the arguments. Not the loud, explosive kind, but the quiet, cutting ones that leave you questioning your worth. She'd belittle my achievements, compare me to others, and slowly chip away at my confidence. Still, I held on, believing that love meant weathering the storms together. But the real storm was yet to come. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner, she dropped the bombshell she wanted a divorce. No discussion, no counseling, just a cold, calculated decision. I was blindsided. The proceedings were swift. She had a top-tier lawyer, and I was left scrambling. In the end, she took nearly everything: the house, the car, most of our joint savings. I was left with a small apartment, some furniture, and a mountain of questions. But here's the thing. While she was busy taking everything we built together, she overlooked one crucial detail: a secret account I'd set up years ago. It wasn't about hiding money or being deceitful. It was a safety net, a just-in-case fund I'd started before we even got married. Over the years, I'd contributed to it sporadically, never thinking I'd actually need it. Now that account was my lifeline. With those funds, I was able to get back on my feet. I found a new place, started a small business, and began rebuilding my life on my terms. It wasn't easy, but it was empowering. Reflecting on it all, I realized that sometimes the things we think are setbacks are actually setups for comebacks. Losing almost everything forced me to rediscover myself, to prioritize my well-being, and to understand the importance of safeguarding one's future. So to anyone going through a similar situation, protect yourself, trust your instincts, and remember that endings can be new beginnings in disguise. It didn't fall apart all at once. It was slow, subtle, like a tiny leak beneath the surface of a house, invisible at first until the foundation starts to rot. We were about 5 years into our marriage when things started to shift. At first, I chalked it up to normal life stress. Work deadlines, bills, the usual grind. We were both busy. She had just been promoted to a managerial position at a marketing firm, and I was deep in launching my own IT consultancy. We barely saw each other except for hurried breakfasts and exhausted good nights. The conversations turned transactional. Did you pay the credit card? Can you grab groceries? My mom's coming to visit next weekend. But somewhere along the line, the warmth disappeared. She stopped asking about my day, stopped laughing at the dumb jokes she used to love. I noticed she spent more time texting, but when I walked into the room, the phone always flipped face down. She started going out more girls' nights that became more frequent and later more vague. I'm not proud of it, but I snooped once. Just once. One night while she was in the shower, her phone lit up with a message from someone saved as T. It read, "Can't wait to see you this weekend." Same room. My stomach sank. I didn't confront her right away. I needed time to process what I already knew deep down. I wanted to believe there was still a version of us that could be saved. But when trust is gone, everything else unravels fast. I tried to fix it. I suggested counseling, date nights, a weekend getaway. She said I was overreacting, said I was imagining things, said I was too sensitive. That's when the gaslighting began. Every concern I raised was met with deflection. Every emotional need I expressed was twisted back on me. I started to feel crazy for wanting what used to be so normal between us. And yet I stayed. Why? Because I had invested so much. Years of memories, shared dreams, intertwined finances. And honestly, a part of me still loved her, or maybe loved who she used to be. Then came the business expenses. She started pulling money from our joint account for vague work-related reasons. Conference trips, wellness retreats, networking dinners. The receipts never matched. When I asked, she got defensive, then angry, said I didn't support her career, that I was trying to control her. Eventually, I started stashing a little away, not out of spite, out of survival. I opened a private account in a credit union she didn't know about, transferred small amounts, a few hundred here, a bonus there. Nothing that would draw attention. It felt wrong at first, but something inside me said, prepare. The final straw came on a Tuesday. She was in the kitchen making tea. She turned to me and said flatly, like she was reading a weather report, "I think we should separate. I need to figure myself out." No tears, no regret, just resignation. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I had nothing left to say. She packed a suitcase that night and went to stay with a friend. What she didn't pack, though, was the knowledge of that one account I had kept secret, and that, as it turns out, would change everything. The unraveling of a life together isn't sudden, but the paperwork is. It came on a Thursday morning, quiet, unassuming. A knock on the door, a manila envelope, a signature. Just like that, I was officially being divorced. She'd already retained a high-end attorney. The kind of lawyer that uses soft voices and sharp pens. The kind of lawyer who doesn't negotiate, they dictate. Her demands were clear: the house, the car, and half of our liquid assets. Never mind that most of those assets were mine. I called my lawyer. He was pragmatic but honest. "We can fight this, but it'll be long and expensive. Judges lean towards splitting everything down the middle in your state." My blood ran cold. I'd worked tirelessly for years building a company from scratch, sacrificing weekends, missing birthdays, all under the assumption that we were in this together. Oz! Turns out I was the only one still playing for the team. The court ordered temporary living arrangements. She moved back into our home. I moved into a one-bedroom rental near the airport. It had a smell old carpet and newer despair. The ceiling fan made a grinding noise when it turned. Still, I made it work. Then the accounts started disappearing. Joint savings emptied. Our investment portfolio liquidated and reallocated in her name for stability. Even my business checking account was frozen temporarily while the lawyers debated whether she had claim to any ownership. Meanwhile, I was living off the only resource she didn't know existed: my secret account. I'd opened it 3 years before, back when I first noticed the inconsistencies. It was born out of a gut feeling, just a quiet whisper in the back of my mind that told me to prepare. I never told anyone about it, not even my closest friend. That decision turned out to be the smartest move I ever made. That $42,000 became my lifeline. It paid my rent, kept my business afloat, fed me. It reminded me every time I logged in to check the balance that not all was lost. But I didn't just use it to survive. I used it to rebuild. I rebranded my business, built a new website, invested in marketing. I took online courses to sharpen my cybersecurity certifications. Within 3 months, I had 3 new clients. Within 6 months, 10. And here's where it gets rich. One of my new clients was a firm that subcontracted for her company. I didn't even know until I saw the back-end IP address of the server I was working on. It matched the one I had built for her firm when we were still together. Call it karma. Call it fate. I call it opportunity. I billed them anonymously through my LLC setup under a different name. When the job wrapped, I sent the final invoice to her. She paid it without a second glance. Meanwhile, she was flaunting her new chapter on social media: sunset hikes, brunches with tea, inspirational quotes about self-love and boundaries. Good for her. I wasn't bitter, but I wasn't done either. The divorce settled quickly after that. My lawyer was a bulldog when it counted. I walked away with my company intact, though significantly bruised. She got the house, the car, and a chunk of my retirement. But I had the account. I had peace. And most importantly, I had clarity. I started seeing things differently, not just her, but myself. How much I'd tolerated, how often I'd second-guessed my instincts, how many red flags I'd painted green because I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. There's a pain that comes with betrayal, but there's power in surviving it. And I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Court was nothing like I expected. You see it in movies and TV shows, all the drama, the explosive arguments, the sudden confessions. But in real life, it's just sterile, quiet, almost cold. The morning of the hearing, I woke up earlier than usual. My tie wouldn't sit right. My shirt collar felt too tight. But my mind was oddly calm. This was it, the moment that would officially close a chapter of my life that had unraveled slowly and painfully. When I pulled into the courthouse parking lot, I saw her car already there, polished, spotless like always. She had always cared about appearances. I walked up the stairs with a coffee in one hand and a folder in the other. That folder held everything: bank statements, email printouts, receipts, all meticulously prepared with my lawyer over the past month. Inside the courtroom, she was already seated with her attorney, sleek suit, designer heels, a look of detachment on her face, like this was just another business meeting. I guess for her it was. My lawyer leaned over. "You ready?" I nodded, not because I felt brave, but because I had nothing left to lose. The judge entered. We all stood, and then the process began. Motions, objections, dry legal language tossed back and forth like a tennis match. They argued over assets, over furniture, over who got the dog. She fought hard. Her attorney painted a picture of her as the supportive spouse who had sacrificed everything to keep our home intact, while I had been emotionally unavailable. I didn't flinch. Let them talk. When it was our turn, my lawyer stood and calmly presented our side. We didn't attack her. We showed the numbers, the trips charged to our joint account with no justification, the funds withdrawn without notice, the timeline of events, the screenshots of messages from T. My ex looked away. That was the first time her mask cracked. But the highlight, the moment everything shifted, came when I submitted my financial affidavit. She assumed she had cleaned me out, assumed that the small savings left in the joint account was all I had, that I'd walk out of court broke and broken. But she hadn't counted on the secret account. Legally, it was protected, opened before marriage, funded from premarital income, documented, legitimate. The judge reviewed the details carefully, asking a few questions. My lawyer answered with confidence. Suddenly, the narrative changed. I wasn't the pitiful spouse who had been taken advantage of. I was the one who had prepared, the one who had not only survived the emotional toll, but had outmaneuvered the financial ambush. Her lawyer asked for a recess. Outside in the hallway, she approached me for the first time in months. "You had that account the whole time?" she asked, voice low. I nodded. "Started it before we even got engaged." She blinked, stunned. Why? I paused. "Because I believed in being prepared. I just never imagined I'd need it because of you." We returned to court. By the end of the day, the judge ruled that the remaining assets be divided, but my protected account stayed untouched. She walked out ahead of me, heels clicking down the marble floor. No eye contact, no goodbye. I stayed behind for a minute, took a deep breath, let it settle in. It was done. Divorce doesn't always come with slamming doors or screaming matches. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it ends with a folder on a desk and a signature that separates two lives forever. But here's the thing, losing a marriage doesn't mean losing yourself. Not if you've been quietly, patiently protecting who you are. I walked out of that courthouse lighter than I'd felt in years, not because I had won, but because I had finally let go of something that had been weighing me down for too long. And the road ahead. It wasn't just clear, it was mine to walk however I chose. They say revenge is best served cold, but I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace, freedom, and control over my own future. In the weeks after the courtroom dust settled, I started waking up without that heavy feeling in my chest. The kind of weight you carry when you've been living under someone else's expectations, someone else's shadow. The first thing I did, I invested. Not in stocks, not in crypto. I invested in me. I hired a therapist. A real one, not the kind who just nods and writes things down. This guy challenged me. He didn't let me wallow. He forced me to confront how I'd let myself shrink for so long, how I'd become someone who asked for permission to live his own life. I started working out again, not just to look better, but to feel strong again. I remember the first time I benched my body weight again, I nearly cried. Not because of the physical milestone, but because for the first time in years, I felt like I owned something. My strength, my will. Then I turned to business. I had always been good with systems and cybersecurity, so I used a portion of my secret account to launch a boutique consultancy specializing in secure digital infrastructure for small and mid-sized firms. No investors, no debt, just me, a laptop, and one hell of a chip on my shoulder. Clients came fast. Referrals spread faster. It turns out when people see you've walked through hell and still show up sharp, steady, and reliable, they want you on their team. Within 6 months, I had more work than I could handle alone. So I started hiring. Not just anyone. I hired people like me. The underestimated, the overlooked, folks who'd been pushed out, talked down to, or ignored. My team. We were scrappy, smart, and loyal. And damn, we were good. By year 2, I wasn't just recovering. I was thriving. The business was pulling in 6 figures. I'd bought a house, nothing flashy, just something mine with a view of the woods and space to breathe. Funny thing is, I still got updates about my ex from mutual friends. Turns out the guy she left me for, yeah, he bailed. Took her money, crashed her car, and ghosted. Poetic justice maybe, but by that point, I didn't even care. I was too busy building. I traveled for the first time in years. Took a road trip up the Pacific Coast Highway, windows down, music up. I watched sunsets with no one asking me where I'd been or why I was late. I stood barefoot on cliffs and felt the wind and thought this is living. She took everything in that divorce except the one thing that would actually determine my future. She didn't just overlook the account, she underestimated me. And I'll tell you this, there is no greater fuel than being underestimated. That account, the one she didn't know existed, it was more than money. It was hope, autonomy, the quiet belief I'd always held in the back of my mind that I could survive no matter what. And now, I don't just survive. I lead, I build, I protect what matters, and I never again let anyone else hold the pen to my story. They say every scar tells a story. And when you've walked through betrayal, loss, and the painful unraveling of a life you once trusted, your scars don't just speak, they scream. But here's the thing, scars also mean you healed. If you've been listening this far, you know my story wasn't just about an ex-wife or a secret account. It was about identity control and what happens when everything you thought was solid crumbles beneath you. I didn't just lose a partner, I lost trust, I lost my sense of direction, I lost time. And yet what I gained was worth even more. So let me leave you with the lessons I paid for painfully, but in full. 1. Always have a safety net financially and emotionally. I never imagined I'd need that account. But when things went south, it was the reason I didn't spiral. Having something that was mine, untouched, untraceable, meant I had breathing room when the walls closed in. And just like finances, emotional independence matters. If your entire world is tied to someone else's approval, affection, or opinion, you're always at risk. Keep something for yourself, your passions, your friendships, your personal growth. 2. Trust is earned. Don't ignore red flags. There were signs. The text, the secrecy, the way conversations became confrontations, but I wanted to believe we could fix it. That loyalty and effort would be enough, and that blind hope cost me dearly. Now I know when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Don't explain away the unease. Your gut is your first defense against manipulation. 3. Legal literacy is power. I walked into the divorce naive. She had a seasoned attorney. I had Google and sleepless nights. Never again. Now I consult professionals before I sign anything. I read every clause. I ask the hard questions. Don't let emotion blind you to paperwork because the fine print often decides your future. 4. Don't let bitterness own you. There was a point I wanted revenge. I fantasized about public shaming, about taking everything back. But the best revenge wasn't in words or anger, it was in peace, success, stability, a life rebuilt. Those things sting louder than any insult ever could. Let your healing be the loudest message you send. 5. Who you surround yourself with matters. Luis, my sister. Even the barista who remembered my name when I was at my lowest. The people who stood beside me, not because they had to, but because they cared. In hard times, your real circle reveals itself. Nurture those relationships. Forget the ones that vanished when things got rough. 6. You are not your mistakes. I blame myself for too long, for not seeing the affair, for not being enough, for staying too long. But healing taught me mistakes are chapters, not your whole story. What defines you is what you do next. And I chose to rise. 7. Document everything seriously. From financial records to text messages, keep a paper trail. You never know when you'll need it. In court, in negotiations, even just for your own clarity. Memory can be shaky when emotions run high. Facts won't fail you. 8. Take care of your mental health. I tried to tough it out at first, pushed through sleepless nights, buried emotions under sarcasm and work. But healing demanded honesty, therapy, journaling, long walks without my phone. Don't underestimate the toll divorce or betrayal takes on your mind. Treat it with the same urgency you'd treat a physical wound. 9. Don't rush the next chapter. Everyone asked when I'd start dating again, as if finding someone new would erase the old pain. But rushing into something just to fill a void is a trap. Take time to rediscover who you are outside the relationship. When you're whole, the next chapter writes itself with integrity. 10. You are allowed to win. After all the dust settles, some part of you may feel guilty for thriving, like you're betraying the memory of what once was. Let that go. You survived. You endured. And you earned every moment of peace and progress that follows. Don't dim your light to comfort those who tried to snuff it out. So, what now? Now I live differently. I laugh louder, trust wiser, and protect my peace like it's gold. That secret account was never really about money. It was about foresight, about respecting myself enough to prepare for any storm. Maybe your story is different. Maybe it's messier, quieter, still unfolding. But wherever you are in it, know this. You are not alone. And this, whatever this is for you, is not the end. It might just be your beginning. So stand tall, speak up, protect your future, and never forget you've got more power than you realize. Because sometimes the best thing they leave behind is you finally stepping into everything you were meant to be.